Good afternoon, it's 4:30. It's Wednesday, February 4th, and it says 6:30 p.m. Nope, that's not right. Anyway, it is 4:30. We are here as members of the Planning Board for a public hearing on proposed ordinance changes. Most of them, all of them, are not substantive. They are just corrections, deletions, reorganizations. So I'm calling this meeting to order. And do we need to do a Pledge of Allegiance? What do you think? I've got it. It's funny. I've got it on my I've got it on my agenda
for a
here.
public hearing as opposed to, we're not taking any official action.
No, and it's funny because the public hearing says it's 6:30. That's
Yeah.
why I got a little like.
I was very confused by
Okay.
that. Yeah, I had it on
It's-
I had on my calendar. I was like, what's happening here?
All right, so we'll open this meeting up. We will dispense with the pledge for tonight since we're not taking any votes. But even so, I'd like to start with Heather and have people introduce themselves.
Heather Allen.
Courtney Snellings.
Amy Heibel.
Dan Hobeck.
All right,
And I'm Margaret McIntyre, the town planner.
thank you. Okay, so this is on Zoom, and it'll also be available for review at some later time on Harpswell Public TV. So I'd like to just start out by asking, I'm just going to turn it right over to Margaret, who put these together for us. This is our public hearing. These will be presented to the public again at town meeting and voted on at town meeting. So we won't be taking any votes here. The town has to approve of these as part of the public process. So Margaret will explain what we're doing.
Sure. So starting with the first one on the agenda is the definitions addendum. So this amendment essentially reverses an unintended impact from the ordinance amendment we did last year. So this really is going to get in the weeds. But last year, in the shoreline zoning ordinance, it used to have this language about the minimum, about freshwater wetlands being 10 or more contiguous acres. But we took that out of shoreline zoning and put it in the definition, which is a more logical place for it to be. But what that did by putting that regulation in definitions, it impacted how you view a freshwater wetland in the subdivision ordinance. So previously, in the subdivision ordinance, you had to have a setback from any freshwater wetland. And then when we put this 10 or more contiguous acres, then all of a sudden, it had to be a big wetland to be mapped in the subdivision plan. So all this is doing is fixing that.
So the way that Margaret explained it to me, because I asked her about this too,
Yeah.
in the subdivision ordinance, there are setback requirements, but any wetland has to be mapped in a subdivision application. But when you're using the basic land use ordinance, the shoreline zoning ordinance, or the site plan review ordinance, the wetland has to be of 10 or more contiguous acres or inundated or saturated by surface groundwater at a certain frequency and duration. So there are two different requirements between subdivision and basic land use ordinance. And so now those are all in the definitions addendum, so you don't have to go from subdivision where you read one application for wetland to shoreline zoning or site plan review, and then you have another one. And I'll just say one more thing. When we start implementing the comp plan, we're going to take a look at whether or not wetlands really need to be 10 or more acres in order to be of value to the town. Because as the Water Witch Queen of Brunswick, Marianne Naif, and her committee have said very clearly, Margaret relayed this to me also, that wetlands are recharge organisms for groundwater. So the greater degree that we protect smaller wetlands that may not meet the state requirement for concern, may be of great concern to us in town, and we need to take a look at them. So that's the first one.
So, building on what Amy said, to clarify, freshwater wetlands are only regulated under shoreline zoning if they meet this definition. So they have to be that 10 or more contiguous acres. They can't be a forested wetland. So, like Amy said, when we do this, when we do the comp plan, or anytime that, you know, if it's in agreement with the comp plan, a town can regulate any wetland they want under shoreline zoning. You can regulate anything, but we can shoreline zone a smaller wetland, a forested wetland. We could shoreline zone vernal pools, but that would be terrible. Terrible to regulate because they're hard to enforce. But this is just kind of the stock language out of Chapter 1000, which is the municipal shoreline zoning guidelines.
Thank you, Margaret.
And we can be more restrictive in our ordinances.
We sure
If
can.
we so choose
Yeah.
to, you know, eventually, we could look at
Yeah,
that.
we can propose that at town meeting, but I think we'll have a lot of, we've talked about this before, we have a lot of discussion to make with people who have property with a wetland on it, in order to make sure that there's support community-wide for regulating wetlands more than we do in order to protect groundwater. And there are other benefits as well, but we'll have some work to do on that one. Margaret, do you want to just go through all of these and then open the public hearing, or do you want to open the public hearing for
I mean,
each one?
we might as well open it up to Anne, our only,
Oh, yeah, okay.
our only
you-
commenter, because this is the
Oh,
only
it's the
one that
only
she
one,
wanted to talk
okay.
about.
All right.
Yeah.
Will you go to the podium and, sorry.
To bring you the microphone?
No, I really only have one comment on, and it's basically wordsmithing. That was a good explanation of the confusion and why this is being presented again. But if you read this quickly, what I would suggest, if you go along, it's a big, long sentence. When this term is found, blah, 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 blah. It goes then to bogs and similar areas other than forested wetlands which are inundated. Now, that term "which" is confusing to me because I don't know if it refers to forested wetlands or the marshes and bogs area. And I think it can be read both ways. What I would suggest is simply taking out that forested wetlands bit, and at the very end, making a very simple sentence saying this does not refer to forested wetlands.
Oh, good, good, good.
And then there'd be no confusion about that which, and which it refers to.
Good point.
Anyway, that was my only issue.
Well, that was worth your coming.
And I would also encourage mightily protecting every wetland we can possibly protect
Yeah.
because of the reasons that have already been presented.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne.
I do think that, you know, well water and water supply and water quantity and quality is such a big issue, and people love to talk about it here, that I feel like it could be a great motivator to, you know, Mary Ann and I talk about this a lot, like what value, when you regulate people's property, what value are they going to get from
Yeah.
the regulation? And this is a great example. Yeah.
You know, 10 acres is a lot of area.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that there are places on the map that are zoned resource protection on our official shoreline zoning map that no longer meet this definition, and so they're no longer shoreline zoned regulated wetlands because they're 10 acres, but they're forested. So
Is there a reason why it's 10 acres as opposed to 5 acres?
it's just the mandatory, it's the minimum.
I think the state when they wrote this law, the DEP was really trying to not take people's property. They were very cognizant of making sure that they could really defend the limitations that were imposed.
But you could either, like, in this scenario, when you shoreline zone a freshwater wetland that meets this definition, it kicks it into resource protection, which is really, really limited. But a town could have a different zone. You could regulate a smaller wetland and not impose the strict restrictions of resource protection. Maybe you just have setbacks from a wetland, but you don't prohibit building like resource protection does. There's things you can do.
So forested wetlands.
Yeah.
Another thing that needs a definition, and maybe, as you suggest.
Yeah, I think.
There has to be some value, you know?
Yeah, and the key one of the keys would be not filling them. Because if they're not regulated and you fill them, you've just lost all kinds of filtration
Yeah.
for
Right,
drinking water.
right. And
Well,
we've
and
seen that.
stormwater management too, and
Stormwater
runoff, and
management,
erosion control. Yeah.
That's a great
I
suggestion.
pass one of those every single day, all filled in,
Yep.
Mm,
which is a travesty.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Knows what I'm
Yeah,
Yeah, I
thank you.
sure do.
Okay. Take care, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question on the back, which I said to Dan, because it's the lawyerly language, but apparently shall is as strong as must. Not to me, the following 3 criteria shall be met for classification. And I said, why do we keep using shall? And he said, it is as strong in legal language as must. Because
sound-
for
does it
me,
sound
I
nicer?
was like,
Does it
well,
just
they
sound
should,
nicer? Is that
they
why people
shall.
use it?
It's a more traditional,
Yeah,
it's a more archaic.
yeah.
I liked the must because that makes it pretty clear. These must be met.
So what's the difference of saying shall? What could you do if it says shall that you couldn't do if it says must?
Doesn't have any teeth. Shall has no teeth.
It's more English sounding.
How does must have teeth?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's why
Yeah.
I asked. I mean, if I were a member of the public looking at this, shall sounds like I get a little wiggle room. I get no wiggle room with must. But if it's not a legally thing, then
Should will give you wiggle room.
Yes.
Shall does not.
Yes.
Okay.
You
Yeah, must
shall
gives you
comply
nothing.
with this, yeah.
anyway,
Okay,
just bringing that up.
okay, all right, thank you.
So what do we do, what do you think of the recommendation about clarifying the forested wetlands thing?
I think it's I think all of it's clear as mud, sort of thing,
Okay.
you know?
So do you want to leave it the way it is?
To be honest, mostly so we don't have to have another public hearing.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's
okay.
really it. Other than
Yeah.
that, we can have another public hearing. We could have it in 2 days if we wanted to.
I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with it the way it is, but, since you brought it up, I
Yeah.
thought we ought to at least,
Yeah, for sure.
It is ambiguous. I have to admit, I blew past that.
Yeah.
But now that it's been brought up, it is ambiguous.
Without having another public meeting, could you add a citizen's note?
I can add a citizen's note.
Long citizen's note.
Yeah.
No, just a short citizen's note that
What would
says,
you say that would be short and clear?
the short citizen's note was, would just say, this does not refer to forested wetlands. Or other than forested wetlands, it's obvious, but other than forested wetlands means this does not refer to forested wetlands. I'm just looking for a way to
Yeah.
make it clear but I don't want to have another public hearing.
no, do we have a definition of forested wetlands?
Yes.
We should, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, then there's your answer. We have another definition of forested wetlands.
We do.
Okay.
It's too bad we just can't cross that out, other than
Yeah.
forested wetlands. I understand why we can't, but
Okay,
So we're doing
Right.
nothing with this then?
now we're going to leave it like it is, so we don't have to have another public hearing, but appreciate Ann's coming in
Yeah.
and giving that feedback.
We going to give up on a citizen's note?
Um,
I mean, if
No.
Margaret were to work on a citizen's note, could that be added, or does it
What-
have to be?
What you could just say
this
is,
meeting?
restrictions, forested wetlands are defined elsewhere in the code.
I mean, forested wetlands are just not regulated under this umbrella of freshwater wetlands. I mean, that's just, I know it, and it's obviously not clear.
No, it
It's
isn't.
obviously not clear to,
Well, you could put citizens note, forested wetlands are regulated under section blah, blah, blah.
I
That
think
would
that
do
would,
it.
I think that would do the trick. I think.
all right.
Thank you. And that doesn't need another public hearing.
No.
No, because it's not officially part of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, good.
We expect that you're the one who knows all the ordinances.
I'll tell you, understanding how freshwater wetlands are regulated is really hard because it's just not, it's not intuitive to understand like that there are shoreline zoned wetlands and not shoreline zoned wetlands. And some get regulation on the municipal level and some get regulated on the state level.
Yeah.
It's not, and then there's streams and vernal pools, and it's just, it took me a really long time to understand, especially in Harpswell, because we spend so much time talking about the coastal wetland,
Right.
and that's really obvious. But, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to site plan review ordinance. And Margaret will clarify for us what that's all about. It's, again, no changes to the authority of the staff review committee are proposed, and the amendment will be more user-friendly.
So the original one was just a big, long paragraph, and it was really ambiguous because it said, amendments to approved site plans for structures of less than 1,000 square feet shall be reviewed, but it doesn't, shall be reviewed by the staff review committee. So that's what it originally said, but it was really ambiguous if the amendment was less than 1,000 square feet or the existing structure was less than 1,000 square feet. So this, I feel like, does a good job of explaining that it kind of lays out better the regulations and the procedure.
Thank you.
I thought so
Okay.
too. My note says, thanks for replacing 16.5 with something readable.
Yeah. The old one, it's just like,
Oh,
it,
fine.
it just was really hard to understand what
Yep.
was it trying to say.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was trying to do too many things in one paragraph.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably all one sentence, in fact.
Okay,
Maybe
so
that
that's site plan review ordinance. And again, all of these proposed changes are available for review on the website, or you can contact Margaret at the town office to get further information. The next one is the definitions addendum. And again, that was to fix unintended consequences of amending the definitions addendum and the shoreline zoning ordinance in 2025.
What do you
So-
have over there?
Oh, we
Can
already
we
did
do that right up
Yeah.
front? Oh, I'm looking from your,
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't do those in the
Okay.
same order.
okay, so next, we're on basic land use ordinance. All right. So this is just regarding the Board of Appeals Authority, and it's updating the outdated language that is currently in the ordinance. So go for it, Margaret.
So this was based on a recommendation by a municipal attorney last year, and she basically said, your existing ordinance is not really in line with state statute. So we worked with our attorney, our town attorney's office, and the chair of the Board of Appeals to craft language that is more in line with state statute, less confusing, but still maintains a lot of the authority that the Board of Appeals has now. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how much in the weeds we want to get with this. But it really is just kind of reworking it, taking out the language that you can appeal the assessor's decision, because the assessor doesn't make decisions under the land use ordinances. It takes out a lot of the conversation about the local plumbing inspector, because that is all in state law. So, you know, if you want to figure out what the authority to appeal an LPI decision is, you look at the state law and not at our ordinance. So,
Okay. Thank you.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the last,
What,
sorry.
Oh,
one thing that's really interesting about this is that an appeal from a planning board decision has different rules than an appeal from a code enforcement officer.
Mm.
Because there's language in there, that de novo language.
Yeah, what,
De novo means you start from
be
square
new,
one.
like novo, like new,
Right.
yeah,
You mean you're,
I circled that and put a question
you are
mark.
acting, de novo means that you are just starting from square one and you're not relying on anything else. It's a completely independent review. So if they're reviewing something that a code enforcement officer has determined, they're starting from square one and looking at it fresh. that
You
lang-
mean appeals would be?
Appeals, yeah.
Okay.
However, that language does not appear with the planning board. Which means that because the planning board has had the opportunity to not only hear the petitioner, but to hear neighbors and all that kind of stuff, since we have a body of information at our disposal, the review by the Board of Appeals assumes that the planning board got it right unless they can be convinced otherwise.
I can lend some light onto why that is that way. So, the attorney recommended that both planning board and code office decisions be de novo. But the Board of Appeals specifically likes, from what I understand, they like that planning board is an appellate appeal because the planning board's decisions are a lot more technical, and the Board of Appeals doesn't have the same expertise on all the same items. So they wanted to just make it appellate. So when you appeal to a planning board decision, you're appealing one specific thing that you think they got wrong. Where when you appeal a code officer decision, they're looking at the whole
The entire
application,
application,
and
yeah.
they can throw it out for a totally different reason than what you originally applied for.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, so, but
Yeah.
the Board of Appeals is a lot more comfortable, given their role in the
Yeah.
planning board's review, just to do it on an appellate basis.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's an
again,
interesting distinction.
it is interesting, and I keep bringing up 1829, LD 1829, and, you know, if you have a lot that has 4 units developed on it, that gives a lot more wiggle room for, I'm not going to accuse in any way, shape, or form. It just gives a lot more wiggle room for things to go wrong, not only in the application, but also in the review. There's a lot more to review, it would seem to me. I don't know how that's going to play out, but it's going to be interesting,
Yeah.
because you're essentially approving, you know, stuff that the planning board used to approve.
Right.
Yeah.
Used to get review by the planning board and used to have public input and public review and transparency, and now you're not going to. And it could really, it could be very interesting.
So one thing that is maintained in this version of the 14.2 is that the Board of Appeals has the ability to waive this 40-day appeal window, which I think speaks to that too. If you don't know that your neighbor's doing a project and you come back for the summer and there is no notice that your neighbor's doing a project, if it doesn't go to planning board, the notice is you're supposed to hang up your building permit within 2 days of receiving it. And that notifies all the neighbors that this project's going on, and that's how it's written in the ordinance. So it was important to Ned, that the chair of the Board of Appeals, that this good cause regulation stayed in there, because it allows people to appeal right to the Board of Appeals instead of taking their
Yeah.
appeal to court.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a little
Yeah.
more, I
Yeah.
feel like,
A little
small
cleaner.
town and neighborly.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Margaret.
Yeah.
All right, the next one I think is an important one, and that's floodplain management ordinance. And we've been through this before, but Margaret, go ahead and summarize for us.
So this is a really in the weeds ordinance amendment, and it was discovered, this was discovered last year when I was reviewing the floodplain application for Lynette Shepherd, who went through the planning board to get a new commercial dock with a bait house. This section, our coastal flood, this conditional use section allows you to build bait houses, fish shacks, whatever, and allows you an exemption from the elevation requirement. But VIM and VIN give you additional regulations that contradict the exemption out of the elevation requirement. And last year, when I was reviewing it, I sent it to the applicant, who was not very pleased that I said, you know, your project has to meet these standards, and it doesn't. And so we got this Sue Baker from the Maine floodplain program. I don't know what the acronym is. We got her involved, and she said we should strike those two items. And she said, strike it for Lynette's application, and when you get a chance, amend your ordinance to take those out.
Great.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Good.
It's
Good.
just, it's, yeah,
Right, thank you.
contradictory.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Any members of the public who want to say anything, either on Zoom or otherwise?
Nobody's on Zoom.
Nobody's on Zoom, okay? Nobody is here in the room. Any other
Questions?
comments? Okay.
I will say before you get done that there will, obviously next year, there'll be a lot more ordinance amendments
Yeah.
for town meeting.
Right.
You know, we have 1829 that we have to implement by June or July of 2027.
Yeah.
The state has given grant, we can apply for grant funding to hire a consultant to work, to write that ordinance language, which is cool. But it seems like a lot of work just to write, you know, seems like a lot of additional work for all the municipalities.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a comp plan implementation, hopefully, so there'll be more coming.
Good.
Yeah.
That's why I called it an unfunded mandate. But hopefully, if we can really have some good discussion around it, it will be more productive.
Will we be learning what changes were made to the comp plan at some point that would necessitate ordinance changes?
That's a
You mean
good one.
how, which ordinances that will?
Right,
the
right.
state
I
said,
mean,
yeah.
I know what the initial comp plan was, but I know there were a lot of comments, right, made by the state.
Oh.
And did we have to, I don't know, when they make a comment, do we then have to, I'm just going to seize on growth areas just because that comes to mind, that we didn't have it and they wanted it, and maybe they said something about it. Does that change anything? I mean,
They just wanted us, and Margaret can explain this better than I can, that they just wanted us to make it more clear, number one, that we did not have any growth areas, and number two, explain why we didn't have any growth areas. We had sent them a letter explaining that we didn't and why, and they agreed that we didn't need to have growth areas, but they just thought it needed to be threaded more cohesively
In
and
the comp plan
coherently
itself.
throughout
Yeah.
the plan.
Okay.
And
It
so,
wasn't that we didn't tell them,
yeah,
it's just they didn't, it wasn't
Yeah, I was a little
incorporated
confused.
into
Wasn't
the
part of it.
comp
Yeah.
plan.
right.
No, I just picked that off
Yeah.
the top of my head because I knew that was a difference, but I also knew there were a lot of other comments that they
Yeah.
made, but
They-
nothing had to be,
No.
The only thing that comes to mind for me that actually was a change is that we inserted language that we're going to have a code officer who we support and is certified by the state, which we already have and we have to have. But that was like one box we needed to check. We checked that box, and the rest of it was like updating data, we updated one map, we inserted this growth area exemption language, and then we changed a bunch of words from like rural to interior, or, from directing growth to, I can't even remember, like, we took out the words growth and rural when we weren't specifically talking about growth areas and rural areas, because those are defined words, and so it was just all about clarity, but
Kind of cleanup, really.
Yeah.
It sort of
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah,
cleanup.
it was for consistency and,
it was,
and we also added a section on capital improvements, which
it was already there.
Yeah.
It just was old.
Yeah,
So Christy worked on updating the capital improvement section, because it's all supposed to tie together. Like, when you have a growth area, you want to have a capital improvement plan that supports where you're directing the growth and what work you need to do to put the growth there.
Yeah.
And so it's all about having everything tied together. But
Sorry,
we
I
don't have
didn't
that.
mean to spend so much time on
okay.
it. I was
No.
just wondering
no, but,
whether that was going to lead to a plethora of
yeah,
ordinances.
And all of that's on the
changes.
website if anybody wants to read it.
Yeah.
The changes, the new comp plan, they're also at the Oars Island Library, the Cundy's Harbor Library, and the Curtis Memorial Library, and here in the town office.
and I've already seen an instance with Margaret where Margaret made the comment accurately that an idea that was proposed during a discussion, and I can't remember even what it was last night, you might remember it more than I do, after the comp plan meeting, it has to be in the comp plan, it has to be consistent with the comp plan, so whatever we do,
Yeah,
I think
any
Margaret's
ordinance
got that.
amendments, now that we have a comp plan, we have to, any changes that we make land use wise have to be in compliance with what's put in the comp plan. It's our vision.
yeah. So we have a
Makes sense.
good new barometer against which to measure ideas.
Yeah.
The last thing, I'm gonna close the public hearing, all right?